Welcome to Intentional Queen Podcast, Journey to Restoration with Janine. How are you guys doing? We are now in March, okay? And we just recently had International Women's Health Day, but I'm also telling you Happy Women's History Month. All month is going to be something that's so important that we understand what it is to be a woman, but also to tap into our feminine energy. Let me give you some updates on what's been going on in the streets. As y'all know, I've been talking about my sabbatical life coming from the bedside. For people who don't know, I used to do nurse anesthesia, and I took a little step back from that. And people ask me why would I do that, and I walked out by faith. So this is going to be more of a talking to you and helping to encourage you type of thing, because I think this is the tone that we're going through. As you know, this is my year of refinement. And I think anything we do, we have to grow. And refinement is very hard. And I've been really doing some research, and I've really been doing some things. And I've done a lot of things in the last couple months. It's kind of funny to talk about it with you now. But one of the things that I did is in February, we did our Activate Momentum Masterclass, and it was good. And I talked about how we leverage AI. I talked more about positive, sexy talk. The book turned 1 year old. I Choose Me, The Intentional Guide to Never Losing Yourself Again. Yes. It is now a year old. We've hit the year anniversary. We are hundreds with the S on the end books, and we are doing over 30. I think we're at 35 or 36 Amazon 5-star book reviews and more. And all that to say is I'm blessed and I'm grateful. And my message today is to keep going. But a lot of times I get these questions about, Neen, how did you self-neglect? How did you get into burnout? Like, people ask me all that all the time. And I recently was at a nursing conference called Nurses Making Money Moves, shouting out Dr. Farah. And I wanted to go to that conference because, one, you need to get in the room. Your net worth is as good as your network, okay? And I network with a lot of people, but what I want you to understand is you got to get in the room. And when I took my sabbatical, just to back this up a stage, I planned for my exit. And people said, well, how did you get there? What is burnout? It's exhaustion. When you get tired, when you have compassion fatigue, when your body has said, I'm having mental and physical symptoms of stress, and your fight or flight, your autonomic nervous system is dysregulated, you have to make a change. So when you talk about nurses making money moves, because we're just going to pull this off of there was some insights and some things that I want to blend into this, because people been really asking a lot about my story, but I want to bring it together and bridge the gap. So I'm not sure what I'm going to title this, but I'll probably call it 5 lessons that I've learned starting the sabbatical and how I got there. Now, I can't lead you past sabbatical. Remember, for anybody who's sharing their story, you should always teach people from where you've come from, because that keeps your self-worth. That gives you that confidence. You can speak from where you came. The goal is to go back and get people to where you are. Okay? And so where I am is in a place of rest. I went and got my nails done. Okay? And so this is the lesson that happens with a sabbatical. And when you choose yourself, right? Everything about me is about choosing yourself. That's why I call the book I Choose Me. And I lost myself because I wasn't taking time to take care of me. And so one thing people know I do that's important is I like my nails to look good. We get these feet done, and I get these eyebrows and all those things. You gotta keep yourself upkeep. And so I went to my appointment recently, and shouting out my girl Lulu. She said, I was doing your pedicure and stuff, and you just look so relaxed. I said, well, I've been on a sabbatical for months now, and it feels good. She said, yeah, it looks good on you. So sometimes you don't even recognize what you need, but people who rock with you, people who support you, know you need it. A lesson is your family needs you. So I learned that my family needed me too. So shouting out my family. So I made it a lesson of me taking a step back. It helps them too. So my child, I'm able to spend the holidays. I'm able to do things that I never could do because I was in burnout. I was in exhaustion. I was tired. I needed several seats and naps. And so the sabbatical this time was my choice. And not that I was really at burnout when I started the sabbatical, But I knew after beating burnout twice, I saw the red flags coming. And I said, you know what, Janine, you can't do it for a third time. And this is the thing about stress, just as I take a sidebar. Chronic fatigue or burnout takes time. And if you continue to get into burnout, it will continue to come because you have to learn. And a lesson that I learned in that was self-advocacy. I had to advocate for myself. I had to choose me. That's a lesson. So I chose me when I said, I'm going to give 2 weeks notice and thank you very much. I'm out of here. They said, Janine, can you stay? Can you this? Can we that? No, thank you. Just like that. That's a boundary. No, thank you. Because this is a thing too. I have been betrayed. I have had life events, and we all have. But if you don't have something you believe in, I believe in God, but I learned to trust him. And he said, you need to go out and do what I asked you to do. And so my sabbatical has given me time to show up more for you. You probably see me more in the internet streets. You see my book is selling. We got people on book clubs. Like, I am around. But more than I am around, I'm around for myself. I'm nurturing me. I've never nurtured me in this way. And it feels so good, but it feels good when other people see it on you. My child is more emotionally regulated because I am. Because I'm not stressed from dealing with toxic work environments. I'm dealing with toxic people. I'm dealing with stressful job, meaning my patient load. These people are sick. They having illnesses and diseases that are in the 1 millionth percentile. And I got to pull up journals and Google and all that and come up with creative care plans to take care of them because you have 50 million allergies and all that. That's stressful. You had patients dying. I had coworkers dying, committing suicide. And where I'm going with this, because I don't want it to get too dragged out, is it gets to a point. You have to create boundaries for yourself. And I can tell you, when I came back from my first bout of burnout, and I tell people I almost had a stroke and I was having the health things with my thyroid and all that. Because the second bout of burnout, that's when I had issues with my arm and all types of stuff going on. I ended up writing my book during that time. But I remember God saying, I just wasn't ready to be obedient. I'm private. I'm not going to be speaking my truth. You got me to do the podcast. I'm not writing a book about my life. I'm not doing it. And I realized it doesn't matter. When he wants you to do something, you better do it. So next thing I know, October of that year, he was like, you out of there. And so I was out for months. I was going to physical therapy and occupational therapy and all types of stuff. And I remember spending my 39th birthday inside of a physical therapy place, because when you've been injured in a certain way, you have protocols that you have to meet. And because of where my birthday lie, I had to be at PT and OT a certain amount of time, days of the week, and the way their hours were, that meant that my birthday. So what I'm saying is, during that time, people was jealous of me having the ability to be home, but they didn't see all the things. I was in so much pain. Chronically, I was in pain. And I remember doing a YouTube video. If y'all go over to, this is a shameless plug, but go over to my YouTube channel, Janine R. Huff TV, and you'll see under one of my the live section or the live tab, you'll see I talk about a vision party. And I look kind of rough in there. And at first I didn't want to post. I didn't even want to go live that day, but that's around the time that I'm talking about. And I was in so much pain and I didn't want to do it. And I said on that message about how when you are preparing, I forget what my word of the year that year was. I think it was evolve, because this year's refinement and last year was expansion. But when I was saying evolve and talking about how I had to get in position and being in pain, and, you just have to show up when you don't want to, and do it when everybody's watching, but also do it when no one's watching. Just how I had to cultivate who Janine was and live in her authenticity. When I ask people what you see when you talk to me, they like, Janine, you just raw. It's like you on the outside, you look so calm, but when you start talking, you speak into people's hearts and souls. And I didn't recognize the weight that I carried by my voice. And so I'm going back to that with the lesson of sharing my story, because the lesson in that is I didn't want to be obedient. And God wanted me to be obedient by writing that book. But I was like, I can't really type, but I am off. And so I dictated that book. And so when people say, oh, you wrote a book, that's good. I know my book is for someone. So you never let people or anything stop you from being obedient, because I didn't know a year ago when I published the book, self-published the book, that it would have the transformations. And this is why I tell you, you got to watch your tribe. And I got a good tribe now. I didn't have it back then, but I got a good tribe now. And they've given me opportunities to speak. They bring me on their platforms. They come on my platforms. They give you book clubs. They have people come and buy your books. They tell people about your books. Like, they see what you're doing. They say, I'm going to put a post on my LinkedIn and get you 60 books, and didn't know they was going to do that. People, when you share, people were baffled when they read that all the things that I had on the inside, because I wore it well. So there's a lesson when you hit self-neglect, because people say, how did I get there? Because I wore it well. See, when people don't believe that you're struggling because you wear it well. Okay, you strong, you wear it well. I'm going to challenge you to not wear it well, to take that damn cape off. Because when I took that cape off, and this time I could say I'm sitting in my sabbatical and feeling okay. Because see, you got to count on joy. The next lesson is you got to count on joy. Because I learned I could be joyous in walking away from things that don't serve me anymore. There's parts of me that God's going to reveal. But this is another thing too. And I like to give you practical tips too. And you could take it to ChatGPT. And so I asked ChatGPT, I gave him some things about my book and some things about me and my brand and all that type of stuff. Shameless plug. Make sure you following us on Instagram, LinkedIn, YouTube, all at Janine R. Huff, because we're getting these social medias out. And if you have my book, definitely leave a review or reach out to me and let me know. But go on ChatGPT. I talked about this in the Activating Momentum, and it was that leverage AI. So I told them all the things, like I said, that I was going through, things that I like talking to you guys about, and just more than anything, just speaking. Okay. And I said, who do I resemble in the Bible? And they said, you are Martha turned Esther, getting ready to walk into a Deborah. And I needed to read and do some reflection. And so Martha, when we talk about Martha in the Bible, she was mad because her sister was at Jesus' feet getting rest. But Martha was in there working hard. Because remember, Janine was overworked, overwhelmed, doing the most, having the sickest patients, wanting to do everything, got every degree behind her name in certifications. Yeah, all that. Let them titles go. And she mad. So she got sick, talking about me. So then I had to go into my Queen Esther. And Queen Esther is when, the crown is heavy. I talked about that. You can go back and look about 3 or 4 episodes back. I feel like 96 or 95 episode. I talk about the life after the crown chooses you. I talk about my Esther life and how the crown chooses you and the things that you need. And I give you 10 lessons that tell you what it feel like to be in the Esther. And now, while I'm in my sabbatical, I'm in my Deborah. I ask God for time. See, this is the thing when you hit burnout. You have to ask yourself what you're willing to give up. So this leads back in circles, because y'all know when I talk to you in layers. And I talked about I was recently at a Nursing Making Money Move. So we're going to shout out Nurse Alice. I think her Instagram is called Ask Nurse Alice. And the reason why I'm bringing her up is she talked about her story. And she said she was a clinical nurse specialist, which means she was like education. She was all around. She had all the receipts, all this type stuff. And in her spare time, she went on to Dr. Oz and spoke and did some things related to nurses and all that type of stuff. And then her institution found a way to get rid of her because they didn't like that she was out on her day off serving other people. So she said her brand got bigger than her job. And so this is a lesson to someone, because I'm not really in that particular thing, but I think I know people like that. And I've seen how people can see you're growing in a different space and try to contaminate or do something detrimental to what you're currently doing. And so this is a lesson to somebody that rejection is protection. So therefore, what you thought you needed, let me rephrase that. What you thought you wanted is not what you needed. And sometimes we so loyal to certain things that God has a way of rejecting you from that spot so you move. He make it so uncomfortable. So I remember talking about a year ago on one of my podcasts, at the beginning of the year, I always kind of give y'all something to get you going for the year. And I talk about the word of the year because mindset is everything. And I say, when you look at eagles, especially as moms, okay, the eagle mom make the nest. Okay, it's very fluffy. It's a big nest. I even made my son watch this video so he can understand my parenting and why I do what I do and how I move. And what it shows is this mom makes this big nest. It's got thorns and brick and all types of stuff inside this nest. Okay, but then on top of the thorns and the hard stuff, it puts all these feathers. Okay, and the point that I'm saying this is when your kids get heavy, they get uncomfortable and they have to move. And I feel like sometimes in life you have to move. And in the Deborah season, or really when you're coming out of an Esther season, what did she have to do? She had to go to the king and get uncomfortable. Okay, she had to step out. She had to step out for her people. And so when you are building a brand or you're being you, your true authentic self, you're choosing yourself, you're having self-advocacy, you need to know it's a risk. And I pause on that because I speak wholeheartedly for people who I've seen people get jealous when you put in positions that you didn't even ask for, or when you think you helping. So that part of Ask Alice's story hit me because a lot of the things I did with my book, or how I would treat my patients and how I got top nurse in my state and how I got all those things, is I was just being me. She was just being her. And sometimes people don't like you being you. So there is the backside coin of being in the front or being the light, because authenticity is not praised enough, but they want you to do it. But they don't always reward that. You could be punished for being yourself. And also Dr. Farah talked about when she advocated for herself in other areas and how she's got shunned out of work environment. So all I'm saying is when you truly do choose yourself, there is a backside. But you do know at the end, it's only you. And when I was in burnout twice, I really had to do the inside work on me, because once I got better, I was able to bloom. That's why that's my signature framework. It is very important for you to understand in life, because I done gave y'all some lessons, but when the word come on me and I got to speak to you, I'm just going to give it to you real. Rejection is protection. And you got to think sometimes it's a blessing for whatever happened, because it got to get you to where you're going, and you got to keep moving. And baby steps lead to giant leaps. I talk about that in the book. And so my compassion fatigue is I was so exhausted and I was so fatigued. That's how I wasn't taking care of myself, because I was taking care of everybody else. I didn't have a place to let down my emotions when my patients are dying, and not because of me, but just because I was in trauma. I was in critical care. There is so much data that talks about that. I was just watching videos on burnout statistics just from COVID. But even prior to that, they were talking about how nurses are burnt out. And I said to myself, man, you really don't recognize how hard you work until you step back. And so for me, I've had a lot of time for reflection, but I just shouting out Michelle. Sorry, forgive me for that. When I pause, I'm making sure I'm thinking clearly. Michelle's Touch. That's the name of her brand. But Michelle had me on the Boss Babe Academy podcast. You should check that out. That's on YouTube. And definitely subscribe to her channel too. But I just recently did an interview with that. And if I have time, I'll drop it in the show notes so you can watch that episode. But I talk about my journey. And I give you some practical tips. But I think it's so important as we are in Women's History Month, and why it's so important that I care for us, because letting go of that boss babe mentality, that's what she calls it, boss babe mentality. But I more so talk about leaning into blooming and letting down what no longer serves you, because we tend to be glorify being a boss babe, but people don't see the things or the detriments that come from that. And there's things that you have to do to prepare yourself. And that is where the self-care approach comes in. That's where the blooming comes in. That's how you activate mindfulness. That's how you boost confidence and you embrace healing, because most of those things come from places or things you've learned. Okay. And so toxic environments, if you used to working in toxic work environments, you can't heal where you got sick. That's even a quote. I don't even know who that's by, but they say you can't heal where you've been sick, not in the same environment. And so whether that's people, whether that's jobs, it's just so much going on in life. And I want you to try to find your moment of joy. But I talked about all these things because these are some of the core lessons that I think you need to hear today that's going to bless you. But more than anything, life is not guaranteed. I told you I lost a baby, but I also lost a family member who was my age. And that was my best friend. And whenever I get myself in an emotional rut, I think about she doesn't have that ability to be here with her child, and I do. I have the opportunity to do things differently. She does not. So you get into a space of gratitude and understanding that just because you are how old you are, life is not guaranteed. And the things you do today affects your future. And so the way I was living as far as always pouring into people, because I thought that was my love language and I was just giving from my cup and not my overflow. And I really learned when I never lose myself again, when I really got in tune to what I like to do. And it kind of pushed me into entrepreneurship because it found me, right? Y'all found me on the podcast. Then I wanted to be a life coach because my mindset coach was like, your story is something you need to do it. And I was like, nah, that's personal too. And then the book. So sometimes it finds you, which goes back to Queen Esther. It can find you. The crown choose you. It'd be heavy though. And when it comes to Deborah, what I mean by that Deborah season is you giving back. Because now it's the give back. Because you took care of you. Now you giving back. And you have to step out. And shout out Dr. Sonia on this where she say, you have to speak from the scar, not the wound. But she also says you can't be private and profitable. And so I'm in a space of it's going to be profitable. But more than anything, profitable is just not money for me. That's financial freedom. That's time freedom. That's the ability to do what I want to do. And so when you are a control freak, perfectionist, overachiever, you struggle with self-neglect and overwhelm because you're doing too much. And so when you let go of what no longer serves you, because that's in the book too, you learn that you can choose yourself more. You can live a more joyous life, and you can be happy with a little bit. Like, I had started my sabbatical and then ended up getting a grant that I had applied for. Things started happening all around me. Always craziness, but so many blessings. And I've had the creative space. I have the time. And if you are a mom, this is not for you to feel like, oh, I need my sabbatical. It's how can you create pockets for you? That's the lesson. How can you create pockets for you, but what you willing to give up? Because whatever you do, there's a sacrifice. And so back in the day, the sacrifice was me. This time, God said, I'm sacrificing that previous career because I need you to do something for me. And so when you start going in, it doesn't mean that he don't pull you out, but sometimes he needs to rehabilitate you and get you ready for where you're getting ready to go. So this message is more so to give you some of my story, but give you some principles, some things to really think about as we're in Women's History Month and self-care and how you got to where you was, because the goal is for you not to stay there. Remember, your rearview mirror is small for a reason. You understand? And I have the Activate Mindfulness, Activating Momentum Masterclass coming back up, because after speaking with Michelle on her thing, they wanted me to go ahead and do it again, but I thought it was really, really good. So I'll make sure to drop that there. And I'm trying to think what else we got going. Make sure you subscribe to the podcast, but more than anything, you need to be on our email list so you can get Mindset Monday emails. I'm dropping in there, giving gems. We have the Bloom Telegram, all that when you sign up to our email list at intentionalqueenjourney.com. And actually, I'm preparing a video and a masterclass snippet for you that you can get when you sign up to the email list too. So you can kind of get the 3 mistakes that are keeping you from being in burnout and you want to lead to harmony. So that's my story, y'all. I hope you enjoyed it. I know it was a little bit all over the place, but when I got a word, that's mostly what y'all need to hear. So level up your intentional queen to a better you. I'll see you guys on the flip side. Bye-bye.